first day, and it's the local governments at the forefront. May we request everybody at the foyer to please join us here at the auditorium so we can start right away. We request all our friends who are at the foyer, delegates, to please join us inside the auditorium. Is everyone having a good time? Is everyone ready to have a nap? No, we can't have a nap. This is a very important plenary. And we have three very important mayors from different cities in the Philippines who will be sharing with us their climate action initiatives. You know, I was planning to do away with my shoes, with my special shoes, empowering and inspire, but I decided just to keep it for today because I know that our mayors and the Vice Minister for the Environment of Japan will also be empowering us and inspiring us with their words. Is everybody here? Or still catching up with lunch because some of the parallel sessions earlier finished late? I have to get the go signal if we will start the session. I'm still looking. Because this morning we had over 1,000 people in this room. Now I see that we have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 100, 200, 300, 400. We still have a very good number. And I expect the same kind of enthusiasm and excitement, just like what we had this morning with the plenary session. Can everybody raise their hands if we're all ready to start? There, wave your hands. Welcome to the Philippines. Mabuhay. Who, I'm sure many of you, it was mentioned earlier that we're all from 60 countries. Who is visiting the Philippines for the first time? Please raise your hand. Oh, quite a number. Okay. Great food. And you know, during your stay here over the next few days, we have 7,107 islands. Lots of places to visit. And maybe you could even extend. And I'm sure our mayors will be inviting you to the respective cities. They're from Iloilo, from Sorsogon, and from Siargao Islands. Siargao, according to the latest survey of Condé Nast, one of the best islands in Asia. Is that correct? Number one. Number one. I would love to entertain you by singing like Antoinette and Alex earlier, but I'm sorry I don't have the voice. All right, shall we begin? Welcome to the second plenary. And this session aims to draw evidence-based lessons from successful local climate actions that enable resilience in human and social systems. It seeks to impart challenges and recommendations on monitoring, evaluating, and reporting adaptation and resilience at the local scale. And it also aims to discuss interventions needed from the national government and other stakeholders to support the work of local governments. Before I invite the honorable mayors up on stage and the Vice Minister Yasuo Takahashi, let us all please listen to this keynote speech from no less than the Senator Loren Legarda.
On behalf of the Philippines and our fellow hosts, thank you for your participation in the 6th Asia-Pacific Climate Change Adaptation Forum. I'm privileged to deliver my message for this panel session on local governments at the forefront, as I accept the new challenge of serving in the newly formed Global Commission on Adaptation. At the global stage, we are forging a bold strategic vision for adaptation. But we must then contextualize our discussions on our efforts on the ground, because all climate action is local. The measure of resilience is not about the number of policies or the amount of budget or the extent of our assistance to communities, but on how effective these mechanisms are in actually saving lives, livelihoods, and resources from climate impacts. For us in the Philippines, adaptation is a matter of survival. We have been urging both our public and private sectors to embrace adaptation and to work together for a secure and resilient future. It is a simple call to action that I know resonates well with you as delegates of our neighboring countries in the Asia-Pacific region. In the last century, our region accounted for 91% of the world's total deaths due to disasters and is expected to bear 40% of global economic losses from disasters from 2015 to 2030 due to our region's climate and disaster risks. Inevitably, our local governments must act as our first line of defense in any disaster. Let me start off with the story of Giwan, a small town along the eastern seaboard where Typhoon Haiyan made first landfall. 5 years since Haiyan turned it into a wasteland, Giwan is now a model of resilience. It has become a pioneer with its climate change adaptation framework, which provides guidance on which systems to be prioritized during climate and disaster impacts, and identifies the roles of stakeholders in climate action. Moreover, its island of Suluan, the first island hit by Haiyan, is now on its way to becoming the town's renewable energy island capital, buoyed by concerted efforts of municipal government and civil society groups. Neighbor to Giwan is Camotes Island in Cebu, famed for its zero casualty count in the wake of Haiyan. This accomplishment is heavily attributed to their Purok system, where the people are grouped into smaller units within their communities, and appointed Purok leaders can therefore easily disseminate information and coordinate evacuation. A zero casualty record was once deemed unattainable, but Camotes Island is one local government unit alongside Batanes and Albay that can attest to have achieved it. In 2016, Batanes, the northernmost province in the Philippines, was immediately placed under the state of calamity due to Super Typhoon Meranti or Ferdy, which was considered the strongest storm since Haiyan. Despite its wreckage, the province recorded no casualties. Meanwhile, the province of Albay attributes their zero casualty record most notably in the wake of Typhoon Ramasun or Glenda, which mauled the province for 8 hours straight to their preemptive evacuation strategies. With winds of over 180 kilometers per hour, Glenda wrought damage in Albay, amounting to 9.1 billion pesos and rendering an estimate of 90,000 families homeless, but all safe in evacuation centers and temporary shelters. For these LGUs, it is not only desirable to establish systems and building institutions to implement the plan. It is important to nurture a relationship with the community so the people can understand better and participate in carrying out their local government's plans. This is the kind of relationship we want to foster between the LGUs and the communities they cater to when accessing the People Survival Fund, or PSF, which is an annual allocation to provide grants for adaptation projects by local government units. To a large extent, it is important to consult local academic institutions on available climate science and data, and civil society on practical knowledge and experiences in producing quality project proposals. PSF proposals must be founded on actual adaptation needs and the aspirations of the communities. This December, there is a tall order from all countries to finalize the work program of the Paris Agreement in COP24 in Katowice, Poland. I hope that through this forum, we also amplify our call for scaled-up climate finance and inspire greater climate action from all nations. With this, I thank you very much. Mabuhay.
Thank you very much, Senator Lauren Legarda. She will be with us on the third day of the Asia Pacific Climate Change Adaptation Forum here at the Asian Development Bank. So now may I introduce to all of you our panelists for this Local Governments at the Forefront plenary session. May we please call on to the stage no other than the Vice Minister for Global Environmental Affairs, Ministry of the Environment from Japan, His Excellency Yasuo Takahashi. Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Minister. And now I would like to call on our three mayors on stage. First of all, he is the mayor of the municipality of Dumangas, the province of Iloilo. Under Mayor Goles, the town of Dumangas established the very first climate field school in the Philippines and was adjudged second in Asia. May we please call on stage, let's give him a big round of applause, Mayor Ronaldo Bayot Goles. She is the current and long-standing mayor of Sorsogon City. She is known for her extensive experience in local governance, particularly in climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction. Her development agenda under a flagship program called HEARTS, or the Health, Environment, Agriculture, Rural Development, Tourism, and Shelter, has been the main platform of the mayor of Sorsogon since 2013. Let us all please welcome Mayor Sally Anteli. Now on his third term as the municipal mayor of Del Carmen in Siargao Islands, the mayor was able to in in partners and collaborators from 0 to more than 100. Del Carmen's partner-driven approach to development has resulted in improvements in health service delivery, education reforms resulting in better learning quality, efficiency, and effective local governance, fisheries, agriculture, and a social business roadmap, and sound environmental management. Let's all please welcome Mayor Alfredo Matugas Coro II. So the format of this particular plenary is that each of the mayors will be giving their experiences and their climate action initiatives in their respective cities. And then this will be followed by a presentation from the Vice Minister, Yasuo Takahashi, and after which we will have reactors from the UNDP and from the ICLE, the Local Government for Sustainability. But we'll start off with Mayor Ronaldo Goles, who will basically give us a background on what factors enable successful climate action at his level. Mayor.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're given the task to present to you a little background of our municipality, and we're given like 10 minutes of maximum of time and maximum of 10 slides. But with the 10 slides, I don't think we can come up with everything that we have to present to you because in the usual presentation we have at least 65 to 90 slides. Please bear with me if I talk quite fast, but I'll try my very best. Okay. So I'd like to welcome everyone to Dumangas, a first-class municipality in the province of Iloilo, and hosting like around 70,000 people, 45 barangays, and almost 12,800 hectares. And we are boasting of our rich marine resources, and we are also number one in the province of Iloilo in terms of rice production. But before, from the previous years, we only ranked like around maybe fifth place, sixth place in terms of rice production. But because of certain initiatives and innovations, we were able to address properly the factors that is being experienced by our local farmers. Next slide, please. As I've said, the municipality of Dumangas is actually at the heart of the country, the Philippines. And we have the longest coastline in the province of Iloilo, having like around 23 kilometers coastline and having, as I've said, the richest marine resource based on the study of the UP Visayas. Next, please. Dumangas, practically an agricultural and fishery municipality, is experiencing two extreme conditions. And this is what's happening right now. Extreme conditions, drought, and flooding. Flooding simply because we are being supplied by water from our National Irrigation Administration with almost a 65, 70-year-old system already. And it's already dilapidated irrigation system. And we need to rehabilitate everything. And on extreme conditions on drought because we are at the tail end of the biggest river system in the province of Iloilo, which is the Halao River system. And during heavy rains, we experience flooding. During summer, there is no enough supply of water for our farming needs. Next. So there is so much impacts on agriculture. Our farmers are experiencing so much damage on crops, livelihood, even on finances to support their day-to-day living. So these are the pictures of our regular condition. Next, please. As I have said, we have also we are also number one fish producer in the province of Iloilo, having around 4,500 hectares out of 12,800, all for fish pond operations. So we are number one in milk fish production in the province of Iloilo. So we are also experiencing impacts, damages in our aquaculture as well as fishing operations. Next, please. Yeah, can you next slide? So our innovations, because of the situation of the experience of all the farmers and fisher folks, we were able to come up with our own local innovations together with our first partners, the ADPC, to come up with the Climate Field School for Agriculture, Fisheries and Agriculture. Now, it all started with finance coming from international partners, but we did it twice, but on the third time, we did it locally funded already. So it is because we wanted to continue the program because of the results of this Climate Field School. The Climate Field School is practically, it aims to empower our farmers. We teach them, we educate them on the parameters of weather forecasting. So it is on weather forecasting application to agriculture. And then we shifted to aquaculture and fishing activities. That is why we were able to bring the municipality of Dumangas into the next level of being the number one rice producer in the province of Iloilo during the first cropping only. But on the second crop period, we now go back to the second or third place because of the scarce supply of water. So these are the programs that we have started. It started with agriculture, and then we shifted to aquaculture and fishing activities. A lot of local governments unit already has replicated the same program, and one of them is my good friend over there. But he was able to bring it in a higher level, having a national award for this program. So it's good also that replication of good practices is being introduced also to other local government units. And out of several programs that we had coming from the agriculture, farming, we shifted to aquaculture. That's where we introduced also our different coastal resource management programs and initiatives, just like the declaration of fish sanctuary, introduction, installation of artificial reefs because of the damage on the corals, the sea grasses, and then we started also introducing the mangrove regeneration and reforestation because practically all, and not really all, but majority of the fish ponds along the coastal areas were damaged and ruined by storm surge. So they left it out, and then what we do is we introduce and we regenerate mangroves on those areas. So those are the some of the initiatives that we have introduced. Next slide, please. So these are the results. There were increase of production, decrease of farm inputs and cost of agriculture as well as fisheries and aquaculture programs. And as I have said, we have empowered already almost maybe 60% of the farmers in our municipality. And take note, not all of them practiced. Out of 100% that has been enrolled in this climate field school, maybe around 90% has adopted this, but we cannot really force them. But majority of them who has practiced the program coming from the climate field school on weather forecast application in agriculture can attest that there is really a good and positive result in terms of their rice production. Next, please. Yeah. So next, please. So these are the things that has been experienced by our farmers, fisher folks, and all the rest. Next, please. We always say that the impacts of climate change can be mitigated through proper disaster risk management and climate change adaptation and innovation. So, as I've said, we have pioneered the locally financed of the program. So this is not worry of the cost of disaster risk reduction and climate resiliency programs, but let us be more concerned of protecting and uplifting the lives of our people. Next, please. So again, I thank you for listening, and thank you for visiting the municipality of Dumangas and the Climate Field School in Dumangas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Ronaldo Goles. Looking forward to visiting Dumangas one of these days. Let's now call on Mayor Sally Lee, Mayor of Sorsogon City.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Mayor Sally Lip, Sorsogon City. And every time that I do some messages, this is my greeting from the people of Sorsogon. Magandang buhay, magtanim at kumain ng maraming gulay para hahaba at gaganda ang buhay. Magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat. You know, this is my story. Sorsogon City is emerging of two municipalities. One fifth-class municipality and one first-class municipality. I have 64 barangays, and we are in 220 square kilometers, and we have 175,000 population. We were crafted as a city 2000, and I was the first city mayor of Sorsogon, and it was my first job. I did not work in my whole life, except when I came to be the city mayor of Sorsogon. So when we crafted our vision, it said that we are an empowered citizenry, enjoying people-centered governance, living in harmony with nature, and walking in faith with the loving God. So the expertise in me and house as a housekeeper, I brought it in the city of Sorsogon. So how can I really try to govern? When I came in, I was zero in governance. But the mother in me made me excel in trying to elevate the life of people through programs and projects, which the acronym is HEART. It's health, education, environment, agriculture, rural infrastructure, tourism, and shelter. All these programs that I'm saying is not just a motherhood statement. There is a program that supports this acronym of HEARTS. And so, first and foremost, I went into health. I went into education because education is power and power is knowledge. But I had to go to the environment because that's what the Lord said. You are to be the stewards of my creation. And after being introduced with Al Gore, I started to really try to protect the environment. Because what environment, what life are you talking about when the environment is destroyed? The sad part in Sorsogon is we're always visited by typhoons. And all the things that we're trying to build Sorsogon, just one typhoon, everything goes to the ground. And in one typhoon during my second term, the 6 years that I was trying to build Sorsogon, it went all to the ground. But we didn't have casualties. So when assistance came to us, Albay got 99% of the assistance from the international and local funds. Sorsogon City came on the trickle. So in one forum, I said, do we have to have casualty to be able to be helped by these agencies? We're also damaged in the agriculture and the housing, but we don't have casualty. But why is Albay having all these kinds? Because they have a lot of casualty then. I was wrong in this statement. Then I knew that Albay got all the assistance because they are very organized. So I went to Albay to ask them, how can I also replicate your program? And they introduced me. And I would like to thank Ma'am Donna Lagdameo, Doxmam. She was the one who gave empowers us in the city of Sorsogon. She was the one who gave us all the knowledge how to do the mitigation, adaptation, the risk management, and all. And we have the office already. So, what are we going to do in these things? I don't have the monopoly of doing all these things. So people has to be empowered. My program is really a community-based program, participatory kind, because we have this policy that it's shared governance, shared responsibility. And in Sorsogon City, we considered it the city as an inclusive city. All of us should take part in trying to preserve and have to be benefited in the city of Sorsogon. So we have to empower the 64 barangays leaders, not only the leaders, but families, people's organization, and stakeholders like the private sector. So we have to get them involved. Because my statement is, if you're not going to do something about it, nobody will come to help us preserve what we have. So as we are being empowered, we try to have programs and projects, and we have to assist. It's not like giving empowering by giving knowledge. No. After the empowering, there should be facilities that should be given. So what did we do? We built evacuation center. I have three districts, and each district we have around six evacuation centers. So with this, we have to use to for information. We have also created what we call the public's address. We try to give each barangay to have this public system address so that when there is a calamity or there is something that will happen, they can use it and people will always be prepared. Thank God we had been visited by typhoons, but we have to continue to empower and give education to our people. So what are we doing now? First and foremost, I have to relocate all the vulnerable families in the city of Sorsogon. And when we did the data, there were 5,000. So I have already relocated around 2,000 plus 3,000. And this is free because this is for the vulnerable families who are poor. And now we have to level up our the structure. And I'm really very happy that the Hildy Foundation piloted Sorsogon in the bamboo housing, which has been tested that bamboo is even sturdier than the metal. So the Hildy Foundation gave us 50 housing projects on the bamboo. Come and see our bamboo village. And there, because of what we have done, they are still giving us 150 more housing. Because when we give houses to people, we give them the dignity and respect of life. Because we're all created in the image of God. But we have a responsibility to care for them. So what did I do then? Again, I have really to uh, reduce the emissions. And I told them to go live simply. And I have declared Sorsogon as an organic city. When we say organic, it's not only the environment that is being protected, but even the health of our people. Because medicines is so expensive. And then now, I'm doing now, I have contacted the Star 8, and we'll be introducing already, we'll be having the electric jeepney, electric tricycle, electric bus, which is being energized by solar system. Yes. And then in Sorsogon City, we have renewable energies like the geothermal and hydro. And there is a ordinance that is there will be no cool energy that will support our lives. Because we said that Sorsogon City loves life from womb to tomb. So we have to work together really. And I'm really very happy with the Climate Change Commission because when they rated in the whole Philippines the 10 most outstanding cities in trying to protect the environment, Sorsogon City is one of them. And we were given a reward of 500,000 pesos that we use also to really improve the equipments that we have in the city. So what we are doing really now is really making our people resilient, making our people healthy. And they said I have already 2 minutes, so I have to read. Uh, I have. If you were going to what's this? Analyze my first vision, I would say that we have done it 90%. So we have to revisit our vision, and this is now the vision of the city. After all the trainings that I got from the UN Habitat, from the UN, they are my funders. UN Habitat, UNDP, what's this, Oxfam, World Food Program, they are all in Sorsogon. Then I have the most recent one who will help me, the Argo in Australia, they will do the urban planning, and they're going to help us really relocate all our vulnerable families in the city of Sorsogon. And Mr. Will Marcos said he will fund the fund for Sorsogon City. So this is now our vision in the city: a life-loving city of healthy, empowered, values-oriented, and resilient Sorsoganons in a livable, competitive, and sustainable environment under the inclusive and humane governance. we are really doing this. You know, I am illiterate to this PowerPoint. And now my last words is this. In my years of being a public servant since 2001 and also became the governor for 3 years, then I came back as the city mayor of Sorsogon. Protecting life has always been my advocacy. Environment protection is synonymous to life protection. We all aim for economic development to uplift the lives of our constituents, but we must not forget to care for our environment that really gives life. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the seas and the land are the backbone of humanity. Destroying these resources would mean abolishing humanity. God created all of us for a purpose. Find your purpose of your life. Thank you very much and magandang buhay sa inyo lahat.
Thank you very much, Mayor Sally Lee, for that very inspiring and empowering speech and sharing with all of us your climate action initiatives in the city of Sorsogon. And now, maybe call on the mayor of Del Carmen in Siargao Islands, Mayor Alfredo Matugas Coro II.
Go back to the earlier slide. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mayor Alfredo Matugas Coro II from the Municipality of Del Carmen in Siargao Islands, now ranked the #1 island destination in Asia and the #5 surfing destination in the world. Mabuhay naman kayo. It is a paradise, but the challenge is how do you sustain paradise? I was tasked this afternoon to share our experience in resiliency, in building resiliency of rural livelihoods. Next slide, please. Everything that we have done has always been anchored on science. It is a science-based development model or a science-based governance that we have done since 2011 with the EcoTown program in partnership with the Climate Change Commission. EcoTown is a convergence strategy to address the identified climate change vulnerability in the area. The synergy targeted is that of the different programs of various government agencies, private partners, and local communities will be merged. Objective is to aggressively address the problem to give direct, immediate, substantial, and sustainable results. I didn't have experience similar to mayor in government prior to becoming a mayor. I was from the private sector, particularly from the IT industry. So I had no idea also of governance. Thus, when I was presented with the idea of an opportunity to look into the science behind how to sustain what we have then in 2010 and 2011, I immediately grabbed the opportunity. Next slide, please. First, in building the resiliency of our rural livelihood program was to strengthen the source of the livelihood. We're very lucky that we host the largest contiguous mangrove forest in the Philippines at 5,000 hectares. So we started with crafting the very first mangrove management plan. At that time, I believe it was the first in the country. The four major components of the plan included the Del Carmen Mangrove Forest-based ecotourism, the Blue Carbon Project, which will include the mangrove towards the marine resources, including seagrass and coral management, the Mangrove Protection and Information Campaign, or the education side of the whole program, and the mangrove rehabilitation through planting and protection through enforcement mechanisms. In 2010, we might as well have been called the mangrove cutting capital of the Philippines. At the time, mangrove, as we all know, or probably if, in case you don't know, is one of the best tools you can use to cook because it has a very high BTU, which means your uh, your stock, your wood stock would last longer. At the same time, it will make the whole um, food more flavorful for some reason, especially if you cook it in a clay. So at the time, most of our local residents are okay with the idea of cutting the mangrove and using it for cooking. So there is an ecosystem that existed. But we all agreed when we started discussing with them the when we started seeing the science and how it would impact our or increase our risk in terms of storm surges. They started to listen to potential options, and that's when we started sharing that maybe if we work together to come up with a plan, come up with a management plan of how we can all benefit equally from protecting the mangroves, then maybe everybody will participate. So next slide, please. This is when we started developing the whole concept of a new economy. Before, we were all about fishing and farming. It's a fifth-class municipality. Then the poverty incidence was around 59.9% in 2010. So if we stay on the same path, there's no disruption that will be done, then we might as well sign up to be destroyed easily by storm surges. We are on the Pacific side. So might as well, just give up. But they said, no, let's look at the option. How do we develop our new economy, our ecotourism-based economy? Imagine you have a 5,000 hectare mangrove forest, not yet maximized at the time of its potential. Siargao was already growing as a tourism destination, but not yet to its maximum right now. So what we did was we have to convince our illegal mangrove cutters. That guy there is an illegal mangrove cutter and an illegal fisher used to doing dynamite, cyanide, every illegal activity you can think of. Now is our tour guide. He will take you around the mangrove forest, which is very high in diversity. We also host at least 3,000 saltwater crocodiles. We have our own tarsiers, a very nice set of fireflies. You will either end up in this very beautiful lagoon, which is now one of the most Instagrammable locations in the country, or in some of the beaches around this area. Inside the lagoon, you can do all of these activities. Kayak, enjoy it. Inside the lagoon, we don't allow anything. There's no food, there's no water. You simply enjoy nature. And that very small diving board that's made out of wooden planks that we just collected from somewhere, it's always on Instagram. I guarantee you. Right now, we get an average of 700 to 1,200 visitors a day. So every day, we have our own advertisement. Next. What are the other opportunities you get from the mangrove forest? Of course, the presence of high-value marine resources, particularly crabs, lobsters, groupers. So we started to develop all of these things on a community level. We now have the most expensive king crabs in the country. We're selling it at 10 to 25, $20 to $25 a kilo. But have you tried, any of you tried a 2 to 5 kilo crab? That's really tasty. None, right? So you must visit Del Carmen. Next. So how did we envision to be able to sustain it over the different climate changes that will happen in the next few years? Of course, build your own hatchery. You can never supply, even with a 5,000 hectare mangrove forest, it will never be enough to supply the demand that we're getting. We're exporting to Singapore around 100 kilos every 2 weeks. We had to limit it so that we could also eat. Otherwise, all of our food will go to Singapore. So now we're constructing the very first legislated hatchery in the country. It's located in Del Carmen. Next. We sustain all of these innovations that we have done by educating everyone, not just the locals, but we also have to educate everybody that goes through our program, especially the tourists. That's why they agree on everything that we do. Because if you don't, then there's a problem because the concept of social tourism involves you being part of the community, not just you being a tourist, but you being a responsible member of this planet. So we have the first mangrove protection information center in the country, and we do a lot of education campaigns for tourists, for the youth, for everyone. And how do we sustain all of these adaptations so that we can continue to educate not only the tourists, but especially, most especially, our farmers and fisher folks, which are the most vulnerable through education. Next. We built, we're now building the very first Siargao Climate Field School for farmers and fisher folks, funded, one of the first four funded by the People's Survival Fund. I'd like to thank our good friend, the mayor from Dumangas, for allowing me to copy all his programs and making it better. So now, the facility is designed as a science-oriented approach towards climate adaptation, anchored on the capacity of a farmer and the fisher folk. That was the innovation that we're doing. The idea is, if the climate will keep on changing, then of course your process, your technology, and how to ensure food security it also change. And if you just allow your farmer and fisher folks to continue not adapting to the recent developments in climate, then we will all have a problem. They are the only people on earth that we will need 3 times a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I hope you all had a good lunch. Doctors, lawyers, just pray you don't need them. But farmers and fisher folks, we need them every day. So they should be the first that we need to capacitate regularly for every change in the climate. Next. And of course, to strengthen community-based livelihood, I'd like to thank ADB for supporting this program. We are now looking into how do you sustain all of these things? How do you make it more resilient especially if it's community-based? How do you manage or merge the growing tourism-based economy and the local needs so that there will be no displacement? So together with our project with ADB under the Urban Resiliency Fund, we did another round of vulnerability risk assessment to identify what has changed when we did the first Eco Town in 2011 to now. So the result, next. To close, because I need to wrap up. We are now focusing on waste management. Waste management and sustainable water supply. Why? Because again, it is the merging of the two. How do you now sustain the growing tourism industry and the locals? This year, Siargao is expecting 1 million tourists, which we have already met. Next year, because we are ranked number 1, we're expecting 2 million. And imagine, you have 9 municipalities that are mostly 3rd to 6th class. We need all the help we can get, and we know that if we science our way in to this program, we can science our way out of climate change. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you very much for that enlivening presentation, Mayor Coro. Thank you very much. And we just heard the successful stories from the mayors of Siargao, Sorsogon, and Dumangas. And during the plenary session earlier, Samil Hook said that we shouldn't just be listening, we shouldn't just be watching, we shouldn't just be learning from our speakers, but we have to visit these places to be able to learn what they've already started, these initiatives that have really been successful in sustainability and resiliency. So let's give our mayors and their initiatives a big round of applause. Congratulations. And now to talk about how can other government levels and stakeholders provide better support to local governments, and in what ways has horizontal integration among contiguous cities and municipalities been successful in addressing climate impacts. Let us please call back on stage and to this podium no less than the Vice Minister for Global Environmental Affairs, Ministry of the Environment, Japan, Mr. Yasuo Takahashi.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to join this session with three mayors of the very beautiful and attractive island cities in the Philippines. It is very unfortunate I have no time to visit this time, but I will try in the future. So I'd like to talk a little about experience concerning how we cooperate and support local governments to address climate change adaptation. In Japan, climate change has already affected various sectors, from agriculture to natural disaster. And this summer, Japan have we seen a record high temperature in many cities and heavy rainfalls and strong typhoons. They cause severe floods and landslides. So in Japan, many people are now have a strong concern about the risk of the climate change. And in June this year, a new Climate Change Adaptation Act was enacted, and it will come into force in coming December. And many parts of this act are based on the first National Adaptation Plan, which was decided in November 2015. And this new law stipulating clear roles of national and local governments, private sectors, and citizens to promote climate change adaptation efforts. And under this act, one of the key strategies is adaptation in local areas. And firstly, local governments, namely prefectures and municipalities, are asked to formulate local climate change adaptation plans. And secondly, prefectures and municipalities should assign climate change adaptation center for a local climate change data collection and provision center. And local stakeholders can organize regional councils to promote adaptation measures locally in a cooperative manner. And in addition to this, you can see also the second key strategy, promotion of sharing and providing information on climate change related risks in this slide. We established the information platform called A-Plat for providing climate risk data sets and adaptation information for various actors, including the local governments, to promote their own adaptation activities. We also expand this function to Asian Pacific region. We are aiming to fully establish the Asian Pacific Adaptation Information Platform, AP-Plat, by 2020. And this slide showing the roles of national, local governments and the research institutes provided in this new role. The role of national governments are to promote adaptation measures in all sectors based on National Adaptation Plan, NAP, to support local governments' adaptation measures. The roles of prefectures and municipalities is to promote planning and implementation of that adaptation considering their local circumstances. And the role of research institutes provide information for climate impacts and adaptation based on scientific data, and technical support for planning and implementation provided. And this slide shows, and before the new act in 2015 and 16, we supported several local governments, especially prefectures, to implement impact assessment locally and formulate regional adaptation plan. And based on this experience, we published these guidelines for regional adaptation plan for local governments. This slide shows the framework of this guideline. And you can see that it starts from the goal setting and implementation structure building. And after that, they need to compile the current data and future projection for climate change and impact, as well as existing adaptation measures. And then go forward for impact assessment and adaptation planning. And information compiled through these steps would be provided to the communities to promote adaptation efforts from various sectors. Currently, 45 out of 47 prefectures in Japan and 18 out of 20 cities designated by ordinance have formulated regional adaptation plan. And this slide shows an example of a local adaptation plan by Tokushima Prefecture. Tokushima Prefecture established environment measures promotion headquarters composed of related divisions. And they formulated their adaptation strategy in 2016, which consists of 6 sectors such as ecosystem, water resources, and agriculture and fisheries. They also set up a climate change subcommittee under the Environmental Council, consists of external experts. And what I want to highlight here is they set the indicators for monitoring adaptation measures. They also set quantitative goal to measure it. Based on the indicators and goal, the experts are doing monitoring and evaluation, and the result is used for making the next strategy. The next slide, please. And this slide shows our scheme to support local governments. We launched one flagship program called Regional Adaptation Consortium to support local governments last year. This program is under the cooperation with other ministries such as Ministry of the Agriculture, Ministry of the Land, Infrastructure and Transport, and the Ministry of Education. We built a good relationship between these ministries under the interministerial meeting for adaptation. The project sets the regional adaptation consortium in 6 sub-regions in Japan and 1 national steering committee for managing the whole project. Organizing regional councils is expected to build new networks in each region to encourage adaptation efforts. And the local governments, private sectors, local research institutions, and any other stakeholder can be members. And it implements demand-based studies, share the information and knowledge on climate adaptation among the participants. Before starting this project, we requested local governments to submit items for which climate change impact assessment should be done for each region. And we selected more than 35 study items to do from over 100 demands. Scientific findings from these 35 studies will be also used in both regional adaptation plans and second national adaptation plan. And those information are also shared using information platform. So I would like to summarize my presentation corresponding to the guiding questions 3 and 4 of this session. Firstly, our new act aims at promoting adaptation actions in both local and national level, and stipulating the role of each stakeholders, including central and local governments, clearly in the act is important. And the guideline formulated, and also it is important that central government should provide technical support, such as guidelines for adaptation planning. Technical support based on latest scientific knowledge and information is one of the key challenges, and we need a close collaboration with research institutes on this issue. And for the horizontal integration in the local level, regional adaptation consortium consisted of national and local governments, local research institutions, and the private sector, etc., is very effective. Finally, we need a platform for sharing information and on knowledge among stakeholders and strengthen networking among them. And also, I'd like to add that concerning the networking stakeholders, I'm happy to inform you that more than 10 private companies or organizations from Japan now displaying their activities on adaptation in the booths in the corridor. So please, if you have time, please visit those booths to maybe to be informative for you to how Japanese companies or organization is now now doing activities and businesses concerning the climate adaptation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vice Minister, for sharing with us Japan's climate change adaptation initiatives. And now, before we go to the open forum and to the panel discussion, we would like to call on two individuals. One is Risa Edu from the UNDP to reflect on the speakers' presentations and share her experience working with local communities. Risa.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and greetings all the way from the other side of the equator, Trinidad and Tobago. Just like the Philippines, Trinidad and Tobago is a small island developing state, particularly prone to the effects of climate change. But today, I'll just be bringing some greetings to you on behalf of the Jeff Small Grants Program at the UNDP. Many of you may be familiar with the Jeff Small Grants Program as it's implemented in 125 countries across the world, and we have been providing financial and technical support to civil society organizations and local communities for the past 25 years. Our projects are focused on environmental solutions, also focusing on climate change adaptation. All of our projects also focus on empowering local communities, creating sustainable livelihoods, capacity building, and knowledge sharing. Since 2009, the Jeff Small Grants Program has been working with the Australian Aid to help small island developing states adapt to the effects of climate change. The community-based climate change adaptation program particularly focuses on reducing vulnerabilities and building the adaptive capacities of local communities, as well as providing concrete ground-level examples of climate change adaptation projects, as well as integrating community-based adaptation into national planning and policies. One of the key areas that enables success in these climate change community-based programs is the collaboration and partnerships that we establish amongst a range of stakeholders, including civil society organizations, local communities, state agencies, government ministries, as well as regional and other international organizations. Throughout the community-based adaptation projects, we conduct a series of collaborative stakeholder consultations where local communities and state agencies meet to collectively identify risks and vulnerabilities at the local community level. Once these risks and vulnerabilities are identified, we then design interventions based around potential solutions that can be implemented at the local level. Small projects with big impacts. Throughout the entire project cycle, monitoring and evaluation takes place to ensure that the adaptive strategies that we're putting in place are actually working and making sense to the local communities. So these interventions are actually bridging the gap between a top-down and traditional bottom-up approaches. It helps to break the silos that we traditionally tend to work in and helps local communities have a voice in national adaptation planning and policy. To really take what I've just said into and translate it into a working example, I'd like to illustrate one of our community-based adaptation projects that took place in Trinidad and Tobago with the Digital Foundation. The Digital Foundation is a nonprofit civil society organization that focuses on special needs communities. And through their work with various special needs schools, they realized that there was a huge gap in terms of climate change and the response with the special needs community. Based on this, we had a series of meetings with the National Disaster Agency, the Red Cross, as well as the fire department, as well as the local disaster management units to design an intervention and a program that would address integrating the needs of the special needs community and persons with disabilities into climate change adaptation programs. So what we did, we started working with 8 special needs schools and provided training and capacity building to parents, teachers, caregivers, and students so that they can actually understand what is climate change and how we can adapt to the effects of it, particularly with persons with disabilities. We then upgraded the infrastructure of 8 of these schools, installed emergency lighting, fire extinguishers. In some cases, we actually remodeled the entire schools to ensure that they were safe from disasters like flooding and earthquakes. We also worked with the National Disaster Agency to revise the National Disaster Handbook to include persons with disabilities. Before this project, persons with disabilities were not even considered in national disaster response. So this project enabled the approach from the National Disaster Agency to be completely revised. Through the project, we also created a database for persons with disabilities, identifying what their specific disabilities were, whether it be physical or intellectual, so that in the event of a disaster, local disaster management units as well as the national disaster agencies could be better informed in terms of the type of approach to be taken in dealing with disasters and hazards related to climate change. So this is just an example of a project that really integrated local community needs, and in this case, the communities was our special needs community, local community needs into national adaptation, planning, and policy. Today, this project is really one of the flagship projects of the Small Grants Program in Trinidad and Tobago. And because of its success, we were able to attract additional funding from the Inter-American Development Bank to scale this project up to all of the special needs schools in Trinidad, as well as up the region. So this is really an example of public-private partnership working hand in hand with local communities and state agencies to produce a really exceptional climate change disaster risk response. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Risa Edu from the UNDP. And now for the final reactor, before we go to the open forum, maybe please call on Ranel Dedicatoria from ICLE, Local Government for Sustainability. If you could just keep it tight and short. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ranel Dedicatoria from ICLE Local Governments for Sustainability. We are an association of local governments committed to sustainable development. And with ICLE, we have this so-called framework, Green Climate Cities, which allows local governments to integrate climate considerations in their local development processes. It's comprised of 3 steps, 3 phases: analyze, act, and accelerate. And from the sharing that we had from the 3 mayors, we have gleaned the importance of analysis, doing analysis, and that achieving climate change resilience is something that is context specific. If you are an agricultural municipality such as the Mangas, you try and address the needs of the farmers. You try and capacitate them to understand what farmers can do, how farmers can understand complex climate issues. If you are an island municipality which has a lot of tourism potential, how do you then make your tourism industry more environment friendly, more bankable? And how do you do this bearing in mind that you're just one island wherein an action of one municipality will affect the entire island ecosystem? And if you're an urban city such as Sorsogon, which is nestled between two municipalities, which is just on the way to development, how then do you respond to this? Um, how do you bring down the issue of climate change and resilience in a way that is understood and in a way that matters to your target audience, to your constituents? I think that's one important message that our panelists have been giving us. And the second point that I think is very evident from the sharing of our 3 local governments is that peer-to-peer learning works. We had the sharing of Mayor Cora from Del Carmen saying that he learned what he's doing from the mayor of the Mangas, and the mayor of Sorsogon was telling us about how they learned from the experiences of Albay province. However, for this peer-to-peer learning to work, for these exchanges to work, there needs to be follow-through actions. And there needs to be appropriate actions and strong partnerships following this peer-to-peer learning. I think Mayor Coro exemplified this by showing us how the EcoTown framework of the Climate Change Commission, and then now with the ADB, UCC, RTF support, how this peer-to-peer learning can be further scaled up and how this can be further applied. More importantly, after applying and implementing appropriate actions, the need for monitoring and evaluation is very much important in order to document milestones. And I think I would echo what Risa was saying earlier about checking whether strategies in place are still appropriate, are still effective, are still responsive to the needs of your constituents, of the community. And I think this is very much an area where national governments, where our civil society organizations can also help local governments in that help them monitor what is being done, help them identify whether this is still responsive, whether this is still effective. And to everyone here, I would highly encourage you, if you have the opportunity, if you have the time, please visit the cities. I have had the opportunity to visit both Dumangas and Siargao. I hope to be able to visit Sorsogon soon. These places would really showcase very interesting stuff, and you would really see a lot. If you like nature, I'm sure you would enjoy. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the
Thank you very much, Mr. Ranel de Ricotoria. As he mentioned and what other speakers have said, we have to visit the cities to be able to learn from your experiences. And of course, we'll be taking some questions from the floor. We have 15 minutes until the end of this panel discussion. But I'm also very curious to ask the mayors, how important is leadership in achieving climate resiliency initiatives? Because I know LGUs don't really have enough financial and technical capacity, and you have other priorities that you have uh, to face, particularly with your constituents, from education to social programs to infrastructure. How do you put climate change, adaptation, resiliency at the forefront of your of your agenda? Let's start off with Mayor Goles.
Thank you, sir. Well, the most basic thing that that we introduced is to organize up to the grassroots level, all farmers, fisher folks, and start to educate them gradually, because practically with our climate field school, um, maybe 20% are, I would say, high school graduates, and the rest are just elementary grade school graduates. So we have to introduce this program step by step, gradually. We are introducing to them the scientific way of interpretation of climate and weather forecast application. So not all of them knows the technical words, the application, but then by gradual education and information,
Mhm.
by first organizing them and start to capacitate them, empower them, and the political will actually to introduce this program, because not all of them are so adaptive to this kind of situation. They don't even know what's happening, well, from the past years. What are the effects of climate change? Until you tell them directly, these are the effects of climate change, and we have to act now.
Mhm. And how has this basically resulted, Mayor, to the growth of the community?
Well, positively, we ended up having a positive result also in terms of the production side, in terms of the less cost of introduction of farm implements, inputs, and everything. So we maximize the potential of every aspect of agriculture and fishery programs.
Mayor Lee?
Okay, we have the same line. We have to empower people,
Mm.
because if you don't, they don't know what we're doing, then they cannot come to help. And in me, I said that you are more aware of what is happening in your barangay than me, no? Because you are there. The problem. It is always a without before bottoms up budgeting. We're already doing bottoms up program, and really have to really empower them. And when you say something to them, you have to walk your talk.
Mhm.
When you say that, a complete example, when I said that we should preserve water, we should try to lessen the generating waste. And before I was in this advocacy, I have a long hair up to here. So when I
It is
said
now
that,
very short.
yeah, when I said that we have to preserve and conserve water, I had to cut my hair
Mhm.
to show them, really. Even Ma'am Lauren Regardo was telling me, you cut your hair. Yes, ma'am. because I told them to preserve and conserve water. And I am happy that the United Nations Environment Program piloted Sursogon in the program of how to really preserve and conserve water in the next 50 years.
Mhm.
So I have to call on the barangays to really see where are the sources of water. How do we use our water?
But
How
don't your
much?
constituents like complain? Why are you not giving more priority to
Yeah.
social programs, to education, to
No,
infrastructure?
there should be a need analysis.
Mm.
We have to analyze what you have. Before you can implement program, you should know the situation. Because you cannot just implement program just by implementing program. You go beyond implementation, but that the result of your implementation will be benefit to the people. And they have to be there. It has to be participatory. It has to be a collaboration. Because I said, I don't own the monopoly of knowing everything. So what I'm really very happy is we will be having a meeting tomorrow, and I will just tell them today, 90% they're there because they know that we have to really protect Sursogon City. We love Sursogon City and we love life. So everybody should be saving life. When you love life, you have to save life.
Thank you very much, Mayor Lee. What about you, Mayor Coro? How creative are you in basically allocating the budgets for your constituents and for your climate resiliency initiatives?
Well, being a fifth-class municipality, we don't really have anything.
Mm.
In 2010, our budget was only around 38 million. You have to divide the services towards 20,000 people. So imagine how much of that money will be spent on a particular person to uplift their life. So that's when concepts of leadership will come in. We capitalize on a bridging leadership model, wherein you try to, because it's a complex issue, climate change. Again, going back to your earlier statement, how do you put it inside the different
Hello
sectors?
everybody.
Health, education. So what we did was to divide education. How do you address it? If you have an island barangay, how do you bring information to that island? Put a TV. That's an adaptation strategy. So TV-based learning. And based on our studies, TV-based learning has better results in terms of achievement exams. In terms of health sector, what we did was to empower the community. By empowering them, we lessen our barangay health workers became gatekeepers. So by empowering them, we didn't have to visit, we only have one doctor for every 20,000 population in public health. So how do you now bring the doctor to 20 barangays, four of which are islands? One is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So by empowering them, you lessen all of this and using other technologies like uh, phones, smartphones, even we call this, what we call it, text-based consulting. So because you cannot go there, you have to text the doctor. I'm gonna send an SMS. This is the feeling of the patient from the barangay. So a lot of things you can do to slowly adapt. And what we have been advocating for the last few years that climate change is not a problem. It is an opportunity. It is an opportunity to look into how you're governing, how each of the sectors we need to adapt so that you get better out of it. Instead of looking at it as a problem, it is a problem already. Why make it bigger than it is? Look at it as an opportunity to serve better. And we always also say, and you as a leader, you have the power. What is power if not to empower?
Thank you very much for those inspiring words from our mayors. Do we have any questions from the floor? Wow, there are quite a number. Who do we start with? Yes, sir.
Okay.
Would you like to identify yourself?
Yeah, hello, I'm Nestor Lim. Good afternoon, everyone. And I would like to congratulate all the panel for giving us a very good presentation on the role of local government in climate change.
Mhm.
So, in the interest of time, my question is very simple. I understand that there are a lot of people right now that is still hesitant to believe that climate change is real, right? So even if we're already in the 21st century, um, I think there are even leaders in developed nations that doesn't believe that climate change is real. So in your respective constituencies, how do you try to change their mind and inculcate in them that climate change is a real scientific thing and that they should do their part in order to help mitigate the effects of climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question. Of course, mitigate the risk and of course also plan ahead. Mayor.
Thank you. First, we cannot deny the impacts and the result of climate change because we are suffering from frequent flooding, drought. So it's a disaster every year for every Dumangasanon. So what we do, we educate them, we tell them these are the effects of too much heat, too much rain, heavy rainfall coming from the mountainside because we are at the tail end of this biggest river system. So every time there is heavy rains from the upper part of the province of Iloilo, majority of the volume of the water comes down to us. So if it's on a high tide situation, definitely there will be flooding. So it's already part of the lifestyle of every Dumangasano that there is flooding. But what we do, we introduce to them on the different approach of farming, different methodology that during this season, this time of the year, you do not plant these kinds of crops. And if there is a forecast that in the next 5 days there will be heavy rainfall, then you do not introduce any fertilizers to cut down expenses. So these are the things that we start to introduce to them, and gradually, eventually, through this climate field school, they were able to adapt to the situation. So the more they get adapted to the situation, they become more resilient and they become more productive. So, in short, technology, science, we introduce to them, we empower them. We transfer the technology, like in terms of weather forecast application to farming, to aquaculture. That means we are empowering them to be more resilient to this changing environment that we're suffering.
I think we mentioned it earlier that education is really important from the grassroots level. Awareness that this is a risk not only for today but for the future, and we have to plan for it way ahead in advance.
If I may add, sir. Oh, sorry, Mayor. Uh,
Briefly, please.
Briefly, yeah. Education is really important, but in terms of if you're in the local government, the only empowering tool you have for yourself to ensure education that you have mentioned works is policy. So you also have to enforce. For example, in our end, I have a mangrove forest. They really wanted to cut it down. So we have to also enforce. You have to put people, you have to scare them initially. I learned from Hagedorn at the time. So we had to show videos of what's happening, like really scary, scary videos, until it sticks in their brain. And slowly you enforce policies that that has to be enforced so that you will gain from it. And later on, when they start to appreciate it, they will also start to appreciate the enforcement policies that you have
Mhm,
done.
mhm. Mayor, briefly.
Okay, when I started being an advocate of this climate change, 2000, I was already telling them that there will be high level rise, destroying the planet. And then now they see, after how many years, now they see before the seashore is 10 meters away from their house. But now you see, the seashore is already in the house. And I have to go on television and I tell them, this is what I was telling you 10 years ago. And then when we have programs and then we go in this kind of many people and it's so hot, and I told them, before we don't have this. But why we're having this now? And then more heat will come if we're going to do something about it. So I'm just giving them the true example and what is to happen. It's not just a saying. So my program is I have to network with the national agencies. Like I am very much with the DepEd because what I'm doing, the teachers will tell them to do at the school. So we have a very good relationship with our national agencies and also the NGOs, people's organization, and community organization. And I created a one-stop shop institution where I invited all national agencies in our compound, and I gave them 1 hectare each to build their building there, so that it will be easy for us to be connecting when we have problems to have. In Sorsogon City, we don't have casualty, really. But sad to say, the casualty that we have is in the transport section, because we have good roads and the drivers are so fast. So we are now trying to have to educate our drivers, because it's very sad that we don't have casualty during typhoons, but we have casualty on road accidents.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We started about half an hour late, so we're going to finish this at about 3:30 because there are a lot of questions from the floor. And of course, we will just cut into the cocktail reception later tonight. And there's this question from the floor, Vice Minister, and it's all about what happened in late June through July 2018, because southwestern Japan suffered from devastating floods due to unprecedented heavy rains, which is a clear manifestation of climate risks. How does the MOEJ approach this challenge, and in what ways have you successfully supported local governments in their initiatives?
Thank you. As you mentioned, flood is a very important issue for us. And we believe that we have to do more to support local governments. So we are now still also, of course, we are still in the process to expanding our efforts to support local governments. And I think most important framework for us is regional adaptation consortium. I mentioned in this in my presentation, and this consortium includes local officers, local governments, and also researchers and institutions, and they can share the experience and information. And in addition to that, they actually made their own assessment on climate change and share the results. So this kind of very active consortium is very important to strengthen their capacity. And also concerning the flood, it is very important for our ministry to cooperate with the Ministry of Land and Infrastructure because they are responsible for flood control. And actually, Ministry of Land and Infrastructure organized so-called large-scale flood disaster reduction councils in all over Japan. And these councils are aiming to inform water risk information to the municipalities. And actually, many of them actually establish the hazard map. So it is very important for us to cooperate with those other ministries in charge of flood control.
So, Vice Minister, are you also incentivizing local governments to implement climate change adaptation strategies?
Yes, of course, it is very important to encourage local governments. For many local governments, adaptation is a lot of new issue. They don't have many experts. So it is very important for us to support them to provide information and provide networks with researchers. So in Japan, we are for many small local governments, climate adaptation is still very new for them. So we have to make more support on this issue.
All right, thank you very much, Vice Minister. Let's take about 2 questions from the floor. Yes, sir. Oh, there one up front and then the next one at the back.
Thank you very much. I'm Madan Paria from Nepal, actually. And first of all, thank you very much for all the mayors and the Vice Minister for sharing valuable insights with us. But then I really also expect some suggestions, some reflections on some of your experiences on the issues that we are facing in Nepal at the moment. Very important ones. I am sure you also have dealt with such issues in the past. Nepal, as you know, has gone through a federal structure now, and it's very powerful local governments, elected mayors in different municipalities. What is really happening now is the priorities, it's becoming, although they have a lot of resources now with them, but then the priorities and what is the priority for the local government? Mostly it goes with the infrastructure, roads, schools, irrigation systems, drainage systems, and a lot of other things which are somehow very, not so careful about the climate change, climate adaptation part. We are still having local adaptation plans for action at the local level, but it looks like now the priority is going somewhere else. Even the donors are looking at climate resilient development plans. I don't know what that means. So your insights
Yes.
on that, how do you deal, how have you been dealing with it? How are you keeping a balance with what the priorities are there? How are you putting your, still taking climate adaptation in the forefront?
I think we
Thank you very
discussed
much.
that earlier as well from the mayors that they have their respective priorities, and also they have to be creative with their budget. Some of them have just very minimal budgets. Yes, would you like to add to that, Mayor Coro?
Yeah, just to answer, probably it has to be mainstream. Climate adaptation is not done separately. If probably that's the issue, because if you're looking at it as a separate sector, then that's the problem. It has to be mainstream. It's part of your infrastructure development. You design it to become adaptive. When you do education, you design education to be adaptive. Health has to be adaptive. Everything has to be about adaptation. If you have it mainstream, then even if they're doing a lot of infrastructure work, as long as it's mainstream towards climate, being climate adaptive, then that's okay.
All right, thank you very much. We have a question all the way there in the back, sir.
So thank you very much.
Brief question, please.
My name is Akhtaruজ্জামান Sano. I'm working for Save the Earth and strategic program for climate resilience supported by ADB. So that the working in the ADB project mainly create the thirst for learning and knowledge. And after coming this session, I got really hungry to see the adaptation for the local government. And that is the real people at the local level who need to be prepared for the adaptation. So my question is, there are different types of risk, different types of adaptation need: adaptation for drought, adaptation for flood, adaptation for earthquake, adaptation for typhoon. So and now the temperature is accepted to increase 1.5 degrees Celsius more. So now my question is, what extent we need to think for further adaptation, because current adaptation is not enough. Typhoon Haiyan is one of the examples of adaptation. Here we have a lot of preparation, but it is not enough. So what level of new way of thinking coming out from the existing box, if there is any suggestion? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to answer that? Mayor Goles?
Thank you, sir. I don't think there is enough. There is still so much things to do here. We just have to start somewhere, and we have to know our vulnerabilities. We have to know the geographical situation of our every locality, and we start introducing to them, making people aware of what's happening, and we have to go down to the grassroots level and eventually bring the situation to the upper level of governance and even up to the national level, and then we start exploring the possibilities of adaptation programs to be introduced. But I think there is not enough. There's still more to do here.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Babette Resurrection from the Stockholm Environment Institute. I'd just like to ask the panelists, there's been such a deafening silence with regards to gender. Have you identified and actualized gender responsive actions to adaptation in your municipalities? Thank you.
Mayor Lee.
Okay, it's women empowerment. You know, I am a proper concept of women empowerment, because when I was the past 37 years when I was married, I was just a housewife. But when I became the city mayor of Sorsogon, before I just have to tell my husband everything that I do, but now I do it, and then I just have to tell him I'm here. No more asking permission. So that is women empowerment. So because I am empowered, I tell them I am empowered, so you have to be empowered women. So most of my working committee are women in the city. As a matter of fact, I have 4 here women who is helping me to really five women who are helping me in Sorsogon. My agriculturist, my organic farming, Sonia, and then we are all women, because it's better. I learned, I don't want to offend the men, okay? When I first attended uh, women in politics, because I don't know anything about governance, so I went into women politics. And I heard our speaker, he said, because I said I'm a housewife, and said, don't ever say you're a housewife again. And then during the meeting, he said, you know, when you give a job to a man, they'll do it. But when you give a job to a woman, they'll do it better.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Mayor good afternoon. My name is Richard Arsenio from World Disability Union. Um, Talking about mainstreaming, you mentioned mainstreaming. This is a good strategy. How do you mainstream disability in your disaster resilience program? Because our topic is enabling resilience for all. There are 1.2 billion disabled now in the world. And one of the causes is tremendous impact of climate change. So my question is to all the speaker.
Mayor Coro.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Actually, to be honest, when you start developing programs, you're always concerned first with a sector that will not provide special needs. That's reality. But once you have somehow started the program, immediately that's when you start putting up all the other special needs. And that's what we did with towards climate change adaptation, mainstreaming it, which means we have programs, particularly how to address PWDs. We have programs how to address pregnant women, women in crisis, teenage pregnancies, and everything. Particular to your question, sir. For example, right now we're trying to come up with a framework of how to in our because we are now a tourism-based economy. How to maximize your participation, the particular sector of PWDs in terms of tourism. There have been a lot of opportunities that were provided by in other studies and other examples that were already placed, and we hope to pilot them immediately. In terms of health sector, we have already gone through visitation on site and linking up of how to regularly support uh, the needs of PWDs, and also of there's one particular mental health that we are now trying to look into. It's not easy. To be frank, it's not easy. That's why we're also requesting a lot of support from CSOs, NGOs to help to guide us, because it's not every day that your framework will really fit for all. That's why you have to really look into how can you particularly serve specific sectors. And I'm happy to share with you that we are trying to address that. It's not gonna be perfect, as mayor has mentioned, but we are there. We're taking the first step, and I think that's the most important one.
Do we still have time for one more question? Yes, one final question, all the way at the back. The gentleman, please.
Sorry.
Briefly, please.
Niall O'Connor from Stockholm Environment Institute. More of a quick reflection on the question. One is that it's great to see such evidence-based science being used by many of the mayors in how they're advancing the various protocols in their country. So I want to credit that. But the second one is on the gender question that a colleague asked. And it was funny that just the lady responded. And the gender is not just about women. So I just want to make that.
Okay. Mayor Goles. We just wanted to, allow more people to ask questions. Mayor Goles, briefly, and then Mayor Coro, briefly, before we end.
Yes.
And then maybe Vice Minister, you'd also like to add to that?
Well, in our program for the Climate Field School in Dumangas, we always address this properly to all the sectors. And we do believe more women are into our program. 60%. It's unbelievable. Can you believe farmers? We're teaching them, but most of them are women, because they believe that if you teach the women the proper way of adaptation, they will teach their husbands 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So they do not just go to our learning center for just once or twice a week, but they will teach their husband every day, every hour for the rest of the days that they will be together.
Same for you, Mayor?
Yeah, same. That's why I copied from him.
Okay. Vice Minister, you'd like to add to that?
Sorry, I have not prepared to respond on the gender issue because Japan is one of the most behind country for gender issue. I'm afraid is that we have a very small number of ladies in the ministries or Congress. So, but I would like to add one thing. I'm very totally agree with the idea of integration or mainstreaming. And I would like to introduce one very interesting story concerning adaptation in Japan. Uh, Rice is a very important product, farming product in Japan, of course. And many local governments in the southern area is trying to develop rice resilient to the hot temperature. And as a result, they can produce, develop a very high quality rice. And it is very highly evaluated in the market. So I'd like to say is adaptation, climate response can be a win-win story. So we should try to seek this direction. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Minister. Finally,
Yeah,
final word.
I will just say I will just say to share my strategy. When I try to discuss some crucial or controversial issues in my city, and they're all there, and I said to them, I'm not here as your mayor. I'm not here as your mayor. I'm here as your mother. So mother knows best.
On that note, Mother knows best. Thank you very much, Vice Minister Yasuo Takahashi, Mayor Ronaldo Goales, Mayor Sally Lee, and Mayor Alfred Coro II. Thank you very much. Let's give them a big round of applause. Local governments at the forefront. We will now have a short coffee break. Sorry to be eating into your coffee break, but right after that, we will be dividing once again this auditorium into the 4 parallel sessions. And right after that, we have a cocktail reception at the Crown Plaza. Thank you very much. See you again soon. Yes, I will. I've never been to Siargao. You should come. I'm based in Singapore.
You must have tried our crabs.
Yes, I have. Oh, thank you very much.
Crabs imported from Siargao.
Yes, Singapore. They're buying all your crap.
May we announcement? May we have people just make it possible for the rooms to be divided again? Yeah, some of the chairs are in the way of the panels being pulled back. Uh, yes, please. Thank you.
Test. Test, mic, test, mic. Jen, akin na. Mic, test. Mic, test. Mic, test, 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 mic, test, test. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mic test, 1, 2, 3. Test. Mic test, 1, 2, 3.
Sa ano yung kanina dyan? Dyan, babaan mo lang.
Test. Test. Mic 2. Mic test, 1, 2, 3. Test. Test. Mic test, 1, 2, 3. Check.
Sound check. 1, 2, 3. Check. Mic check.